from the wonderful extended weekend that we had. We would like to wish that everybody had a. I'm sorry, we were trying to work through
Memorial
some
break.
stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, memorial break. Well, um, I think we kind of started a little bit. I wasn't expecting this. This is kind of shocking to go. You get in a groove of doing these week to week, and then one boom gets
One
plucked
week
away, and
off
you
and-
forget your rhythm. Yeah. So, but
well-
welcome back, everybody. We hope everybody had a great weekend. We are going to go ahead and get started.
Nathan, who do we have on the podcast with us today?
We don't have just one individual. We have two individuals. And most of the time, you can see one is pretty much Leonard's twin older brother. So you'll probably see him with Leonard. And by his side will be his soon-to-be wife. So we have with us Michael and Sydney. Michael?
Yes.
Woo! Good morning.
Yes.
Sydney,
Hi.
how are you?
So good. How are you guys?
Good.
Michael
How about-
coming in hot with that. Yes.
So we actually, if you notice the picture, we are wireless today, Zach.
Thank you, JB.
So we've got a new sound system filter that basically, in layman's terms, makes it sound better online. And Justin Barton set us up with that. But we were stationary back in our little corner over there, but now we are able to move freely with these wireless mics. And he was saying something about, like, hey, let's figure out a way to get the wired mics working again. And I kind of like this. Like,
Yeah.
This is nice.
This is a little bit more laid back.
Michael's up front over there, and then in the drum cage, walking around on the stage. He's mobile.
He was just on the roof not too long ago.
But it's great to have you guys here. It looks like we'll let Michael get warmed up. So Sydney, we typically do this thing where we'll start with the question of, when can you remember your first encounter with Jesus? Were you, but I found it more of a smooth entrance into the pool if you just ask the question, were you raised up knowing Christ as a child, or is this something that as you've grown older, you guys, because you guys are, for those that don't know, younger, that's actually what we'll start off with. We'll start off with what Michael and Sydney do in the church. So Michael is very good friends with Leonard. Michael, where most times can folks find you serving?
Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. Yeah, I play drums for the church, and you can catch me behind a drum cage playing drums for the church. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sydney, where can folks find you most of the time?
Yeah, once a month. I'm back teaching in children's church in the grade school area. Occasionally, I'll be greeting up front, but most of the time, just chilling in the crowd, cheering on the band for being amazing.
So we're going to do this one like we've did our last couple's podcast, and we're going to go ahead and start with one individual, and then kind of towards the end of one individual story, talk about how you got together. Then we're going to pause and do like a part two, so that way it's kind of split up. People aren't holding on to one 2-hour podcast for the other. So we'll go over there, stop, and then restream, and then do the part two. So with all that fun stuff, so which of you would like to go first?
I can go first.
Okay. All right. So, Sydney, what is it that brought you to want to serve in like the children's, and you're up in the front, the hospitality as well? What is it that attracts you to the kids?
Well, so to kind of go back and answer a question, I grew up going to church my whole life. My dad always served, my mom always served, so I'm super used to that kind of a posture towards church. And I've been in the kids ministry probably since middle school. And I love kids. I love hanging out with them. They're so funny and they're so fun, but also just their curiosity. It's just really beautiful to see them at a young age having that childlike faith, and just you see them starting to get it and starting to put the pieces together. of who God is and what role church can have in their life. Some kids, no matter, it's not just home church, but everywhere. Some kids can come in on Sunday and they're like, oh, I'm tired, I'm cranky, I wanted to sleep in, I don't want to be at church today. But whether it's a place of learning, of deep spiritual growth, or if it's just a place of community, kids can find that too. They have community, whether they know that they're building it or not, they still have community at 6, coming into church, seeing their friends, playing together, giggling at silly videos that we teach the lessons through. They're still getting that foundational knowledge of church. And I think making sure they have a positive beginning and experience and relationship with the church, I think is really important, that they feel that church is a safe, comfortable place to go.
And it's not, I'm not joking around or being funny, but home church is also a church that has a lot of kids that are on the spectrum. We were talking about this the other night in youth because talking about being prepared for that, knowing that these are individuals that are going to, you got to pay extra attention to. It's so something like that, having a lot of young individuals like that, it does take a lot of patience. So is whenever it comes to kids being on the spectrum and such, is that something whenever you were younger you were exposed to as well, or is it more kind of recent that you've kind of been exposed to that?
Yeah, I think there's all different kinds of things that kids are going through, and different kind of, hindrances and different aspects of their personality that kind of develop as they're older. So whether it's working with kids on the spectrum, working with kids that have, ADD or ADHD, I have some people very close to me that work through both of those too. But I think it's so important at a kid's age, but just even as we're growing up too, that everyone feels like they have a place in the church and in the kingdom, because there is no reason for exclusivity. There's no reason to make someone not feel wanted. And that's so important for those kids, even if they go to school and they're told they're difficult, or they are at home, heaven forbid that if someone makes them feel that they're not wanted around, that at church is at least a place where they can be celebrated and be loved on, and if all they need is just to sit in your lap or give you a hug, I'm glad that home church can be that place for those kids, and that they can still build those relationships in a safe space.
I know one of the things that makes home church great is the community.
Oh yeah.
And all of that good stuff. And so I didn't make that comment to be like, making fun of. It's just, it's a fact that sometimes, but to see, I want to talk about a praise report in that, even though we do have kids that are all over the spectrum, you still see kids playing together, having fun. It's not a scary environment. These kids want to be here at home church. They want to be around friends. And that's one of the things that's cool whenever you see, Michael can attest to this, whether it's the Mortons or Jamie or Clayton, if they're here on a practice on a Tuesday night for worship, there's a gaggle of kids running around on practice night on a Tuesday night. And so to see the kids get along like the parents, like, it should be, it just speaks to that child care. That's kind of what I was wanting to get behind that is they want to be here. It gets them excited. And so I could remember as a kid, I wanted to be with my mom and dad in the sanctuary. Like, no, I don't want to be around other kids. I knew I got smart at a young age, and I was like, if you behave and you be quiet, you can sit with mom and dad, and you don't have to deal with crazy kids. So I just was quiet. I was like, hey, play it cool for 2 hours, and you're out of here, man. Like, it's like school. Just ease your time. You be quiet. But so to see kids excited about moving up, that's pretty cool. And so whenever we'll kind of cut back into the church, when was it that you said your mom and dad you seen them serve growing up? Was that something as a kid that strove you closer to God, you would say? Or was that, because I know it can do one of two things. People can be like, my mom and dad spend so much time at the church, but I've noticed that if church is done right, like here, it's like it's not you're picking the church over. But I've heard some people say that my parents were so involved in the church that it kind of drove me away from it, because that's all they did. They were there and they overdid it. So that would be my question. Was your parents, because I remember my mom serving at James River. And so as a kid, I don't really remember serving in the church. It was kind of just going to church, blah, blah, blah. So I would cut back to that question again before I trail too far off on it. Was that something that strove you closer and it got you excited about God? Or did you kind of like, why are they doing this so much?
I think it's a little bit, and I can talk about this later when we get into testimony, but I feel like a lot of things about, your relationship with God and with the church is kind of ups and downs. So sure, there were definitely times when, you want to just sit at home on a Wednesday night, or you want to just be together with your family, but there's obligations and things. For the most part, though, I think it was just really hammering home the idea that everyone does have a place in the church, and that you have skills that are needed, and you have talents that are helpful to the church and helpful to growing the kingdom. So it was less of like, oh, we have to go to church again, but more of, okay, what's my job to do? Is my job to go and sit there and just kind of be there? That's fine if that's, that, because sometimes that is the case. But other times on Wednesday nights, instead of, just twiddling my thumbs while my dad was practicing, or my mom was doing, different serving portions of the church, that's when I started in the children's church and started babysitting on Wednesday nights for Bible study, and then that blossomed into Sunday mornings, and that just kept going for my whole life. I've constantly been in either a children's or a greeting position since then, and I think that being able to discover at a young age like where my strengths lie was really helpful in continually feeling like I had a reason, like a purpose for the church.
So we'll kind of start into like the school life more side of the story. So school, were you somebody who always enjoyed school? Did you enjoy being in school? I mean,
I loved school. I loved school. I loved the structure. I mean, sometimes things were difficult, but I loved my classmates. I loved my teachers for the most part. Like, I was in band. I loved band. So for the most part, I really liked school.
Favorite subject?
Don't laugh. It was math. Math and English were my favorites.
And so before we'll just also state, Springfield is not your home.
No, I'm from St. Louis.
From St. Louis.
Yeah.
So, but
Stand up.
Oh,
stand up.
314.
So somebody who loves school, loves band, all those extracurricular activities. So your ambition in life is what are you going to school to be? Because somebody who loves school would probably want to go to college. So what was your kind of mindset?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of random, but I grew up with my mom and my aunt that had both worked for Disney when we lived in California. That's very early in my life, so it kind of doesn't count. But I just wanted to work for Disney. I didn't know really what I wanted to do specifically. I found a love for communication and for writing and for just kind of maneuvering. I've taken the spiritual gifts quiz, and it's my spiritual gifts. My top two were hospitality and administration. And administration is big in communication. So working on projects, kind of managing things, those were two things that I found really as where my talents lie. And so I ended up going to Missouri State. I got a communications degree, and then when I graduated, I went down to Florida and worked at Disney for a couple years in their kind of social responsibility communication, doing communication and events, which was so fun.
So now, being out of town, obviously it's not like you're far away. St. Louis isn't an awful ways away, but it's not like it's right next door. It always just kind of amuses me how Springfield, working in the customer service industry, I get a lot of customers that come from MSU, and they're either foreign or from out of town, and I'm like, why Springfield? So what was it about Springfield that brought you to MSU? Was it the quality of MSU, or was it just the fact that they were giving you the best offer?
It's funny. I feel like if you would have asked me as a senior in high school, I could have listed off the things I liked about Missouri State. I went there with my best friend and some really, really close friends of mine. They had a great band. Their band is like, I think, almost 400 strong. So a huge band that I could be a part of, a great communications program. It was very affordable, and it was far enough away that I could, get some independence, but my family could come down for family weekend. I could go home if I needed to. But I got to kind of explore my own town and make Springfield my home instead of, St. Louis being like our whole family's home. Springfield could kind of just be mine. So that's what I would have said, back in high school. But now I think coming to Springfield was just one of the pieces. It's funny that I went to Springfield for school and then left and then came back, and we can talk about that later too, but that was how I found home church and found Michael. And I think that going to Springfield at first, I probably wouldn't have returned if I hadn't gone there for the first time. And it's just one of the pieces of like the intricately woven story that God's done.
And so, like we said, we'll try. I don't want to weave into Michael's story too much and cut into that. But I do want to ask Michael this question. So you were also out of town. What brought you to Springfield?
Yeah, so I went to Missouri State for my first year. Went here for a year because the money was just too much. So I went back home to finish my degree at Columbia. Came back because I wanted to get out of Waynesville. Just to be on my own for the first time, not be with around my family. Obviously, I moved, and plus I wanted to be close to my friends here. Obviously, Leonard moved here first, so wanted to move somewhere that's more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Kind of more to do.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And I didn't want to cut too much into a story, but it's just all of the couples that we've had together, they've talked about how it's kind of been a sense of they were at a point in life where they didn't have a plan, and they were just kind of like, hey, I'm done trying to give it, all of myself. I want some direction from you. And that's just, that was just something that's interesting. And I knew I would forget it, and I would bring it up, and it would come back up in a point in a time where it would have nothing to do with it. So I wanted to just ask that question. So we'll go
Way
back.
to plan ahead and not be
Yeah,
awkward.
see, so, but we'll go back to Sydney. So somebody who is going to school, who enjoys school, are you still continuing to serve in the church through all of the school?
Yeah, I had a church here in Springfield that I got pretty involved in. I served mostly at their Connect table to greet families coming in and greet new people that were in, kind of gathering those Connect cards, getting them involved, getting their contact info to whoever needed it. And I loved it. I thought it was a great church. I ended up not returning when I moved back just because at that point in my walk, I needed something a little different from the church. And so finding home church was good, but no, it was a great church. I made sure to get involved, and I got plugged into the church pretty soon into my freshman year, probably maybe the beginning of my second semester. I started going there and stayed there all 4 years, ended up interning there my senior year, and it was great.
So I would ask a question here in this point in time, just because this is something that is interesting for me. So as somebody who is a very strict planner, I am a very go-with-the-flow type of guy. For people who...
So is Michael.
Same, yeah, same.
So for those people, it sounds like your life, you've got everything very in order. And so from a very early time, you said you knew that you really enjoyed hospitality. You really enjoyed greeting, and you really enjoyed structure and stuff like that. So for those people who kind of, like me, whenever it came to trying to figure out where I wanted to serve in the church, it was just sort of plug and play. We're going to last minute, here we go. For those people who are kind of, they know what they want to do and they're not in that position right now, what's some advice you would give to people who, I know we always ask, people, one of the main questions is people want to serve, but they don't know where to serve. This is a different instance. You knew that you really enjoyed hospitality. You really knew that you enjoyed the children's side of things. You understood that at an early age. For me, it's like I said, I was 30 and I figured out, okay, this is where I can kind of dip in. For people who it would be the younger sort of, generation probably figuring these things out at a younger age. What's some advice that you would give them for something? Have you ever had a moment whenever you were like, oh, maybe I'm not going to get to serve in there? Or is it always been one of those things where the opportunity just presented itself?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think in the past, after getting involved maybe in a Bible study, then the leader will say, hey, we actually need some help with the greeting team. Would you be able to help out? That has been the case. It's also just asking. But I think something that helped me was realizing that God has equipped you with gifts, and he's equipped you with talents, and it is our honor to be able to use them to glorify him. And you might think that, like, oh, well, I love graphic design and I love graphics, but like, I don't know how to use that for a church. Or I've seen some really creative ways that people have used their gift for the Spirit being in church for so long. I know before I've seen people that were really interested in sports and loved playing any kind of sport, didn't know how to use that for the church, and ended up using that to get involved with the youth group and leading a sports league that brought people to Christ. That, like, there's so many ways that you can use your talents and your gifts and your interests. And so it's really just finding what do you want to do. And I think the second thing too is just that you don't know what needs there are until you ask. So really just finding someone that you're comfortable with in the church to ask. I know here, like, Jamie will talk to anybody. And I know Jamie and Clayton both. The second that if you realize that you have a talent in something, really just asking, just saying, hey, I love to do this. Is there anything I can help out with? I've gotten to help out with a few, graphic design projects too, and I love graphic design. I also don't use this to recruit me, but I've led worship here and there too in the past as well. So, like, being able to be like in the Easter choir and things like that, you don't know the things that are there until either they present themselves to you or you ask. You can just ask and people will talk to you.
It's official. They're going to put you on the praise team
No.
just for saying that.
I think it's, and this is a little spiritual drop. You made the comment, and I really loved it. You said you really understand at an early age that God's going to use you. Like, if you're open to using your talents for him, he's going to use you. So you understood quick, instead of doing like myself. And the Holy Spirit told me one time, if you would just bend instead of trying to flex and break, like, you wouldn't be in these situations if you would bend to my will. So you begin to understand, hey, I can do things here. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be shy. You can just say, hey, I really enjoy this. Is there something that I can help with? So sometimes it just takes that little bit of
that step of faith.
And we spoke about it, and I also want to give you some mic time, because I want to hear you through the mic. But me and Jamie on the last podcast, we talked about how grateful we were for. I spoke about how grateful I was for Mandy letting us do the weekly announcements, because yes, it was a struggle and we fought through it, but just to see how you've grown through that process, how you've gone up in front and you've read scripture for Clayton, things that, like, you would have not done before. Seeing you
still unsure about it now.
But the thing is you're beginning to understand that these things that we're doing, they're for a better purpose.
Right. It's not about me. It's about him. Yeah.
So what Sydney's saying here is that, and I know that was a long way around the basic question, but what Sydney, for those of you who are having an issue of finding something in the church, it's just understanding that there are things that you enjoy that you can do for the church that can benefit the church. Right. So if you're volunteering your time, that's what it's about, doing what you love and doing it for God because you love God, because God's given you those talents. Sometimes it takes you saying, hey, just because there's not a help wanted ad up, you can say something and just, hey, I understand you may not have a need for this at all, but if you ever do have a need for this, this is XYZ.
Right, here I am.
So. Well, and I think, too, a lot of people don't realize how many behind the scenes roles there are for the church. Some people think, well, I can't play an instrument and I'm not good with technology and I don't like kids. So like, I don't know how to serve in the church, but there's still absolutely a place for you. So like just looking around the church right now, I mean, we set up and tear down all the time for events, helping out with that. That could be, that's a skill. If you're skilled in the coordination of that, if you're able to help just with like organization of things like behind the scenes, we have, I mean, all the time at churches, there's people that coordinate events on, throughout the week and help to coordinate our big retreats and things like that. There's also, I mean, there's just so many roles that can be behind the scenes. If you're more of a, reserved person and would prefer to be like on a prayer team, you could absolutely do that too. Like there's so many ways to serve that use your gifts that God has given to you.
I was going to say, I was going to say this too, like, they make it very comfortable here too. Like you don't have to be, you can just be yourself when you serve with people too, because you serve with like literally good people and great friends and everything. So, yeah, I would say just get plugged in. And like, I'm a very quiet person. I mean,
no,
I know you guys don't see that, but like, no, it's like, I think that was the most important thing was just like, you guys, everybody makes it comfortable here. So,
yeah. And I mean, just not even just serving on Sundays. I mean, we have multiple teams, but there's stuff that goes even behind the scenes, like year round, planning base camp or flourish events and stuff like that. I mean, if you're even wanting to just, join a team that isn't a huge commitment throughout the year, but I mean, also makes an impact. Think about joining one of those teams, planning on flourish or base camp.
And I was just thinking about this today on the way here on things to talk about. And when you really think about it, another thing that makes home church great too is the organizations outside of home church that home church help with. And the example of that is and not very often, but you and Leonard will go and help other churches, their worship team as well. Mm-hmm. They have instrument needs. The thing is you and Leonard are instrumentally talented. Mm-hmm. And the thing is we have backup here. Mm-hmm. And they're available to fill in whenever you guys are gone. Mm-hmm. So you guys are not only are you worshiping in this, you're bringing what home church is about elsewhere. It's about community. Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing. I mean, if you look at the outreaches, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, I understand that, yes, it's sort of its own organization, but in a sense, Larry has outsourced himself from home church to this Help Give Hope organization, brought this into Springfield. There's just so many other examples of that, but that's another thing that I was thinking about on the way here is it doesn't just stop here at home church. The hands, if you look at Dalton and Lacey, Chi Alpha, that home church helps support the ministry.
Right.
Also, they help minister for Chi Alpha. Dalton still is entangled with the Chi Alpha. That's an organization that's not a home church affiliate. Base Camp, we had, what was the one in Ozark?
Guys, yeah.
The Impact Church. Your roots go more than just here. They outstretch over Springfield, and that's what's great about home church. There's not that.
It's so much more than just inside these doors. It's when you walk in, it's family, and you feel like you're home. Mm-hmm. But when you leave these doors, it's our mission to build, a bigger and better community.
Mm-hmm. It was, it's little moments that brought, like, my heart was just so happy. Caleb and Tamara, mm-hmm. Caleb called last Tuesday, I think it was, and his brakes were squeaking, and I didn't know it was Caleb. It was just the guy that called in and said he needed a brake inspection, so I set him an appointment, and Caleb comes walking in, and it's just seeing Caleb, it brought me joy, just knowing that he's still part of the family. He's just planting roots somewhere else in another church. He's not gone.
Right.
Caleb and Tamara aren't gone. We seen him at Leonard's birthday. I mean, they're not gone. Their roots are elsewhere. And to know that vanity isn't held there, and to know that there's still love there, mm-hmm. that's when you know that it's real. And I know that's a huge side road again. But that
down a rabbit
like
hole.
Michael said, it's just a testimony to this
Right.
place. But we'll get back to Sydney again.
I was gonna say something too about
Go ahead.
the for Caleb thing too. That for the OGs that remember Caleb and Tamara, they used to go here. But no, like for I think it was Wednesday night. Yeah, he even asked me to come and like you talked about how we can go to other churches and play. But he asked me to play at his church because they just needed a bass player, and just being around him and seeing him again, it just brought so much joy because, like you said, like he acted like he never left. So it's like it's good that we can still connect even though we go to different churches. So I just
Yeah.
want to say that.
Yeah. And with that being said, that's not like it's not like we're trying to shame on ye. But I think that could be the case sometimes. People could be like, oh, they don't, they left, they don't love us anymore. It's like, look,
Yeah, that's never the
you don't have
intention.
to hold that against anybody. I mean, people have to move. God's not
Right.
going to keep you just held
he's not,
down.
Yeah,
You-
he's
you-
not calling you to
He's
be
ever
stagnant.
changing.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's but that you can still love. You can still have that community. It outstretches. I
Right.
mean, it's that's one of the things that you read. About Paul. Paul, anytime he writes a letter to anybody, I'm sending XYZ. It's not always going to be Paul that's going to show up at your church. It's going to be somebody that loves Jesus as well. So they're outstretched. They're going out. It's not just keep it here, be greedy for
Yeah.
this. So that's one thing that makes home church great. But so we'll go back to Sydney. So it always seems like whenever you have that childhood growing up with Christ, always knowing Christ, there's one of two ways it feels like you are either extremely scared of God or you've just felt that love ever since you were a kid, and then it sort of shines halfway. It feels like halfway through your journey, you're kind of like, oh, this is what Jesus is really about. It's about love. So as somebody who's always been in church, growing up through church, have you always felt that comfort and that love? And has it always been sort of an easy walk? Or have you always, you know what I mean? Or has it always seemed, I don't know what the word, I don't want to say easy, but it seems like people who understand you don't always have to fail to learn the consequences of a failure yourself. I can learn a lesson from Zach. Zach can fail, and I could go, okay, well, I don't need to step in that water puddle. You know what I mean? So you don't always have to fail yourself.
Yeah.
For people who are extremely intelligent understand, oh, that's what happens when you do that, so I'm not going to do that.
Bro, that
You're
is 100% not me.
You seem very put together, and you seem, like I said, you seem very, you know what I mean? Like we're going, this is scheduled this way, this
Yeah.
and this and this. So as somebody who catches on to things extremely quick, has it always been one of those things where you've known God's relationship, you've known this, and you've understood this, and instead of fighting it, you've been able to just learn very quick at a very quick age? Or are you just like everybody else, and this is something that is a daily fight? Because the only reason I say that is because whenever you talk about somebody or somebody perceives you and they don't know you, like Dana said whenever she was here, you think that Dana goes up there and she's very confident. And she's like, I'm not always extremely confident.
Yeah.
So the part of the podcast that we really like is we get to know who Sydney is. So as somebody who sees kids and you're very cheerful when you walk in, you're the first face that people see. So you always have to have a smile on your face. People see that and they say, okay, so everything's perfect for her. Everything's perfect. And I'm not trying to say, tell everybody your sin. I'm not saying that. Is that something that your walk with Christ, you find it to be, no, I just pick up on things quick? Or is it one of those things, because it takes me, as smart as I think I am sometimes, I'm very foolish because I'm stubborn. So I don't bend. I want to, no, this is my way. This is, God said this, and this. Wow. I heard that from the upper deck, man.
My bad.
um,
Should not have chugged that energy drink.
what would you let people know about that? Because it's like I said, being in customer service early in the morning, older people, the first thing they want to do is talk. They love to talk. Kids are the same way. The first thing they want to do is just talk. It takes me a minute to acclimate. I need to get up. Let me move around, let my blood get flowing. So for somebody who is first thing in the morning, you have to have a smile on your face because the kids are expecting it, and you're the poster right in the front. You're one of the first things people see about home church. What are some things that you would let people know that, hey, even though it looks like this, I would like to give you advice, this and this and this and this. For people who see that, what are advice that you would give them to help them with that? Because I know it's not easy to be, for me anyways, and that's why, we talk about individuals, so everybody knows we are individuals.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like, no, Lee, I can't do this. What is it that's helped you be who you are?
I think it's so important. I'm definitely not perfect by far, by any means, but I think it's always so important to remember that your walk with God it's built on endurance. It's going to have ebbs and flows. I'm not a runner by any means, but when you're running, you kind of have to pace yourself. Sometimes you feel really good and you want to run and run and run, and sometimes you feel like trash and you don't want to do anything. And I think that your walk with God can really be the same way. There's going to be hard seasons. There's going to be restful seasons. There's going to be everything. I've never felt far from God. I've always felt close to God, but I do know that my relationship with him has definitely taken kind of ups and downs where sometimes it's easier to go to church, to be involved, to do all these things. And then sometimes it's a lot harder, whether you're going through something or whether you're just tired, just bogged down, work was stressful that week. I mean, there's always, not in a bad way, but there's always a reason not to have a smile on your face. Like, life is tough and people go through some really hard things. But I guess I just have to cling to the thought that God is always there. A big part of my testimony is just God's consistency and faithfulness, that even though I change, even though I go through things, even though my circumstances change, that God is always the same. He is always there. And so no matter what I'm going through, I know that whatever I do go through is a season and there is another side, and God will be with me before, during, and after it. There's never a time that I will feel that I'll know that I'm not far from him, even if I do, feel that way or feel like God's not moving, God's not working. I know he's always present. And so I feel like that helps me to, get out of bed on the days I don't feel like it, or, I don't know. I feel like that's the biggest thing that really helps me. And hopefully that will help other people too. But that's kind of my biggest thing.
And that's the thing. It's easy to say, starting out, whenever you're first starting out in your walk with Christ, it's easy you hear people say that, and it's easy. You're like, oh yeah, it's easy to say that. You're like, just stick with it, and you're like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, you've been doing this for 5 years now, and it's like, yeah, but everybody had a starting point. You've got to start somewhere. Your walk with Christ, it doesn't. That's it. It's a walk with Christ.
Right.
Your journey doesn't start halfway through. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to build up somewhere.
Right.
You're not Mark McGuire, although, yes, I understand.
Throwback.
Steroids helped. But still, Mark McGuire wasn't somebody that was developing computers and then they picked him up and then dropped him in a uniform. He practiced. Yeah. Michael Jordan, same thing. All of these things that people see in these sports athletes, as much as sports fascinate all of us here, you think about that, and there's no difference. But the thing is it's that same aspect. Whenever you hear a Kobe Bryant story, whenever you hear a Michael Jordan story, what was it? When everybody else wanted to eat, when everybody else wanted to sleep, when everybody else wanted to be at home on vacation, I was grinding. I was reading the Bible. I was doing this. And they don't brag about it. They say, that's who I had to be who I am. You may not want to be that person. That's why you are where you're at. because you didn't want to grind. So that's the thing. You got to grind with God. It's not going to be one of those silver platter type situations. And just going back to the conversation we had earlier in the podcast, you understood there's going to be good times. There's going to be bad times. God's there no matter what. For some reason, the bad times getting ready to happen. Don't know why, but God's got a purpose for it. So it's just great to hear stories like this because people understand that whenever you walk in on a Sunday, you can see something, and it's not what's going on inside. And there's people that are tired whenever they're standing at the front door. Whenever worship is going on and you're like, man, Michael's killing it on the drums. He must be feeling it today. And Michael's up there like, man, I just want to be in bed right now. But God, this is for you. There's a kid breaking down, having a fit in the back. Sydney's like, man, I really just want to have a 2-day weekend for once. So there are those things that go on in your minds. There are those things. And in the youth, we just got done with a series talking about reasonable doubt and talking about how there are multiple things, how God doesn't get mad at you when you have questions. It's when you hold those questions against him. You know, it's like whenever, why did you do that? Ask him it, not with a vengeful heart, but with an honest, why did this happen? And the thing that I've always found is if I don't have the answer for it, there's a reason. There's a reason God hasn't given me the answer yet. I'm not mature enough for it, or I don't need to know it. So you can't let those things bother you. But to understand, through it all, he's there. And you're tired, but you have to understand you're not doing this for yourself. This isn't for the greater kingdom. Michael's not playing the drums up there for Michael's band. Michael is going up there tired or energetic. Sydney's going in the back with the kids, tired or energetic, and giving back to God all you have. So if it's not a full smile, if it's a half smile and you're tired, but you're giving it to God because that's all you've got that day, God sees that. And it's not like God's making you suffer through that. God wants to know, okay, on the bad days, do you really love me? Because if you only love me on good days, you don't truly love me. It's easy to love something when it runs good. When your car's running good, yeah, it's easy to forget about your car. But the moment something bad happens to it, you're mad at it or the situation. And it's like your car's just, it's just something. It's just material, you know. It's not, it ain't got it out for you. It's not waiting for you to come outside and be like, flat tire. Okay, let's see what kind of day he's got today, boys.
And I'm still working on that too, because there's days I'm just like,
It's tough.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone goes through all that too, but no, there's days I still need to work on that too. So
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what it's all about, growing and, never ceasing. Once you get complacent, that's when, things get dangerous.
Yeah.
So
And the level of complacent, it's crazy because, like, to see when you look at, we'll go to Scripture. So when Jesus, during that whole storm, Jesus was asleep. So that meant he wasn't closed. He wasn't resting in there. He was asleep. And there was a storm. And it wasn't bothering him because he knew in the end everything was fine. So he could sleep with no problem. He was like,
That's good.
why spend my time worrying? But the problem that I have is I want to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to sleep through the storm.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sleep through the storm because it's God. It's for God. I want to sleep through the storm because it benefits me.
yeah,
And
you
it's
don't
like,
have to deal with it.
oh,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't. No, you're going to have to learn to enjoy the storm. Like, you have to learn to enjoy whenever everybody else is freaking out, being at peace. And
Right.
that's what I have started to try to understand is whenever everybody's shaking in their boots, that cat that can stand there and be like, oh, no, I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm not worried about it. Like, that's, you have to understand that has to be broken from you. Like,
Right.
you're going to break or you're going to bend. Like, you're going to
Yep.
say, yes, sir, I understand. And you're going to realize that, or you can go ahead and fight and waste time and learn the same lesson that you would have if you just would have said, okay. But there's all kinds of kinds.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good. Well, I was gonna like pivot a little bit to what you were talking about why did bad things happen to me and stuff like that, or like why did this happen? I really don't normally talk about this as much, but I want to talk about it just for a little bit. But 2 years ago, I lost my dad to COVID. Apparently, I think the COVID I think affected his lung and stuff like that. But I couldn't see him at all. I think the last conversation I had with him on the phone, and I was gonna take him to Red Lobster. And when I told him that whenever you get healed, I want to treat you out there. Then after that, obviously he was gone, so we couldn't see him. But and that was a huge pivot in my life. Like for me, I didn't want to be. I was at a dark place too, like a very dark place. But I didn't want to show it to everyone because I didn't want everyone to feel sorry for me. So I just faked it with a smile. But like there's nights I'm just like why did this happen to me? I didn't think this was gonna happen this early. But yeah, I was in a very, very dark place. But I know we will talk about that more into like the testimony. But like that just kind of reminded me what you said. Like, I mean, to me, I think that it might have a purpose, but like, it's just that sudden is like, why did this happen to me? I was doing this, I was like, obeying your word, everything like that. But like, why did you take someone who I dearly loved away from me? Yeah. So. And like I said, I'll talk more about that on our testimony and stuff. But it kind of just jogged into my memory.
Yeah.
In a weird way, I mean, I can kind of relate to that too. My grandma suffered from dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that. And when COVID hit, we couldn't see her. So, and her being isolated and stuff like that, and not being in her routine made everything worse. And we lost her around that time too. So I can somewhat relate to you. I mean, I haven't lost a parent, luckily, yet, but still, it's hard, So, yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that we were just talking about. That when you have those hard things to come through, because we're all gonna have hard things we're going through.
Right.
Like we could all four separately be going through really hard things right now, but we're still able to meet and have this conversation and talk about the good that God is and that he does. And also too, I think it's important to just kind of reflect when you're in those moments. One of the things of my testimony is just, I mean, it was funny because you were just singing Oceans a little bit ago, just like off the blue, but the line, "You've never failed and you won't start now," has just been such a, that line has carried me through so much, just that God has never abandoned us, never left us alone. Things have happened in our life in the past, but those moments when you are going through hard things, being able to reflect and say, I mean, being someone that loved school, I loved math, so I love logic, but the logic of if God has consistently shown up through my life and in other people's lives, what makes this situation any different? This isn't the excuse. This isn't the exception to the rule of who God is. Like, consistently, God has been there for me in the past. I've seen friends go through losing family members, losing people that are important, losing their job, all kinds of things. And God has shown up for them and for me in the past. So there's no reason why he won't show up now.
And one of the big slaps in the face that I had over the week, last week, was just really tired and wore out, and really just being in a place of, where are you? Like, I need you right now because I'm pretty wore out. Where are you? Because things are just piling up one after the other. And to go back to the youth, we were talking about how you, through these difficult things, you look throughout all of Scripture and, yes, it's all about Jesus, but from everything that Jesus said he was going to do and everything that God said he was going to do, whether it was a promise through Abraham, whether it was Jesus to the disciples when he died and came back and then he gave them the Holy Spirit, anything that he said was going to happen, he did. And that's whenever I was in a place where I believed God would do it for Zach or for Michael. But I wasn't opening my faith up to that place where it was, I told you I would do it for you too. Why don't you just believe it? Like, why don't you live like it's already happened. And
Yeah,
you hear
ooh.
people say that, and it's like, oh, that's a good word, you know. Live it like it's already there. But that's in a world where you can order an Amazon package and get it in a day, where whenever we were kids and you wanted something and you went to Toys R Us and it was out and they asked, do you want us to order it from the catalog? No, bro, I don't have a week.
I'll pick
I'm
something
going
else.
to I'm going to
Or
Walmart.
put it
you
on
know?
or put it on layaway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you would go to Walmart and Best
Bro,
Buy and the
layaway
mall,
hit.
and you
Ugh.
would go anywhere you could to find one item
Yep.
in a full day. And if you didn't find it, you were heartbroken and you had to wait until next week to go to the store when they restock. Now, if they don't have it, you just order it and it's at your doorstep the next day. So in a world where we've gotten so instant and so you can have gratification now, it's easy to say live like it's already happened, but that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that we go back to that bending process until you bend your mind to that aspect that you're not going to be able to receive it like you've already have it until you live like that in your mindset. And it's easy to be like, okay, God, I'm going to make myself believe this. That doesn't work. You have to believe it. You can't just say it. You have to truly believe it. It's easy to say, man, these shoes are really comfortable, but you don't know if they're comfortable or not, right? It's easy for me to just say it, but until I actually go for it and take my shoe off and say, put that on right there, bud. Here, yeah, put that on. Try that out. Until you actually test it, you don't know. Like, you have no idea. You can just go off of, okay, well, that sounds good, but God's not okay with you just winging it. You know, okay, well, I'm just going to hope you're a good God to everybody else, but just whenever it comes to me, do whatever you want. You know, you can't live like that. But so I know we went way off track there. We'll go ahead and kind of merge into the Sydney and Michael story. So you said that it was. Did you have any?
Oh, I just had a random question because you said you graduated college and then went and worked at Disney. What was that like?
The best. I loved
So
it.
did you work like? I know they have different terms for stuff like that. Were you ever on stage?
Yeah.
Technically?
So I worked at Disney once in college. I did the Disney College program. And so I worked on Main Street, which is in Magic Kingdom. And I worked in the store. So I did merchandise for that for about 7 or 8 months. And it was the best. It was the most fun thing ever. I got to watch the fireworks every night. I got to watch people watch the fireworks, and just like their faces literally light up from the glow of them. But just seeing people so happy and it's really cool. Like there's so many testimonies to God, surprisingly, like enough that in that time. But it's just really cool to see everyone. It was really cool to see everyone just kind of stop at the same time and do the same thing and just be in awe. Like that, it was just beautiful. But yeah, I graduated and went back down and did a professional internship working with their social responsibility team. So working with like nonprofits in Orlando, and with the employees. It was kind of internal and external, but working with employees doing their volunteer program. And then after that, that was a year long. And then I went to a resort and did internal employee communication and events, which was just the most fun. I did that for probably about a year or so, until COVID hit, and then we got the parks closed. We got furloughed, and I ended up getting laid off at the ripe age of like 23, which is interesting.
So had it not been for that incident, would you still be? Do you think down there?
Probably. I had planned to be a lifer, like to be down there for a long time. Disney's a great company, and there's so many places you can go into it. There's so much opportunity for growth and, exploring across different fields. So I saw so many opportunities. I had like stars in my eyes the whole time I was down there, that there's so much that you could do. And I thought I'd be down there for good, truly.
So I know Disney has had a few controversies in the
Oh, yeah.
past and stuff like that. But were you able to like openly talk about your faith and stuff like that while you were at work, or was it kind of like, you know, hey, we just got a mission on merchandising and focus on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So not necessarily with like guests and people that would come in, but I mean, I don't think anyone would, like, if someone was wearing like a Jesus shirt, I could be like, I love Jesus too. That's crazy.
Right.
But there was a really great church down there that if anyone ever is in Orlando, Mosaic is a church down there that's fantastic. But they have some really great intentional ministries about reaching out to cast members and employees. They have a specific like Walt Disney World campus for cast members and employees to be able to go to.
That's cool. Yeah.
They meet on like Disney property. Everyone that's in it is someone that works at Disney, so you have this kind of shared bond. They would also intentionally go into the parks and just like love on cast members, being like, I'm sure this is so hard. It's 5,000 degrees outside and 20,000% humidity, and you're out here in like a tweed costume. Like that is terrible. So just they found really good ways to intentionally love on people, and it's just like God is everywhere. Like you say it and you know it, but God is truly like working in all places at all times. And even a place you wouldn't think about it, like Disney World, like he is moving through cast members there and changing lives and reaching people there too.
So how did you, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but how did you get your foot in the door to go to Disney?
I just applied. So, I mean.
Whoa. It's that easy.
Is that right?
No, so,
Zach's over there.
so I'm a little bit.
Did you say a Tinkerbell costume? Yeah, I could pull a
Say
Tinkerbell
less,
costume.
I'm a little bit more extra than that. So you talked about being a meticulous planner. I knew I wanted to work there in college, and so my first jobs that I ever had, I made sure to get a wide array of experiences. So I worked at Six Flags in St. Louis, so I had amusement park experience. I was a summer camp counselor one summer, so I had experience with kids. And I worked at Kohl's, so I had retail experience. So I tried to really diversify and say, here are 3 things that I've done before. I've worked with kids. I could do kids activities. I worked in an amusement park. I could do any. I know what it's like to work in an amusement park, what that looks like, and also have experience in the till and merchandise and registers. So tried to make myself as attractive of a candidate as possible. That worked for my first time down there. In college, and then afterwards I applied for I think like 22 professional internships. That's kind of a crazy story too. That's also just a good testament of God's faithfulness. But I applied in like January of my senior year and waited and slowly one by one got denied from every single internship that I applied for, until at the very last moment, it was about 3 or 4 days before the deadline, I finally got the call that I had received the professional internship. My goal won, the top one that I wanted. And that was just there's so many things I could talk about with that season of life, but that whole last semester of senior year, just waiting. And coincidentally, I did a study on Exodus during that time, so that was really funny. Could definitely feel it was not 40 years. I was not wandering the desert, but I was just refreshing my email constantly for a whole semester. But yeah, that's kind of how I ended up there. And then I ended up moving back down there after college.
So we'll go back to, if it hadn't been for the parks closing, you were probably going to be a lifer. So you get word that you lose your job. What, in essence, brings you back again to Springfield?
So, the Lord, first of all, I didn't think I would ever go back to Springfield, because I was here for 4 years for college, but I lost my job, posted on Facebook just to kind of share the news and send some like support to my other friends that got laid off, because a lot of us, I think it was like 30,000 people, and then there was a second round of an extra 5,000, because there's over 70K that work there, so almost half if you think about it. But I had posted on Facebook, and a friend of mine that still lives here, her husband had recently got promoted at a local college, and his job was open, and so I figured, why not? I've lived in Springfield once. I liked it. I still have people that are close by. I would be, a 3-hour drive from my family instead of a flight. So I figured, why not? And I applied for it, and I had been applying for other jobs too, while I was on my, what's it called when you get laid off and you get money?
Unemployment.
Unemployment.
Severance.
Oh, severance.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going through my severance and was applying to jobs and just figured why not, and then got it. And within like a month, I sold the house that my parents and I had kind of bought a townhouse down there, and so we sold the house, and I packed up a U-Haul and I moved.
And so all of that is, I think, another testimony to how fast God can move as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you were sitting down there for a years on end questioning yourself. You moved. You were accepting the fact that, okay, there's another chapter in life and it's not here. You didn't wallow in it down there. You could have wasted your time, and you may not have met Michael. So we'll go into the relationship side of things. So you come back from Florida, you're up here, you get this job. What is it that brings you and Michael together?
Well, I had moved the end of February, and then like 2 weeks later, I met Michael. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll talk about my story.
Okay.
So like, so me, Leonard, and Mandy, our old church, they moved to Austin, and I was gonna like be here by myself. So I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. So I was actually gonna live. I was actually really close to moving to Jacksonville, and live with my God family, just start my life there, and got other plans. And if you want to take,
Yeah, so kind of at the same time, God was, shifting things around for me in Florida. So I was in Orlando, just a little south of it, and I was getting ready to kind of move back. Like, I wasn't sure what was going on, and then I got the job here back in Springfield, and so I was getting ready to move back. At the same time, God was working through Michael and Mandy and Leonard. People were kind of shifting around, and so Michael was preparing to leave as well. And I'm so grateful that God changed both of our plans, that He brought me here and He kept you here. And then our paths crossed on a dating app a couple of weeks later.
see how funny the world is.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that don't know, when is the wedding date?
December 2nd.
Woo woo!
Yeah.
So
It's 6 months
6
as of
months.
yesterday.
6 months as of yesterday. So that is a crazy testimony to what one would call a back to back to back to back to back, just like a one left hook, right hook. I mean, that was a lot of stuff in a short amount of time.
Oh, yeah, it was.
And so we'll just kind of take that tidbit of information there. For those of you that are listening and it seems like it's a one thing right after the other, we talked about earlier about how it, your walk with Christ, you just kind of understood things, you knew things. So that kind of also aids in helping with that, the one after the other, the next shot after the next shot. But for those people that are going through it right now, I mean, like we said, you could have wallowed in self-pity down there. You could have, which Michael's story obviously isn't your story, but, you have these one thing right after the others in that time, and it's not like you've had a steady place to call. I'm a person that it may not be my house, but in my mind, I need something to be my stationary home. It helps me sleep. It helps me acclimate to the area. So for me, that would be very difficult. Just, next move right after this. For somebody that is having difficulty with that, what's another, we obviously talked about walking with Christ and understanding bad things are going to happen. But this is more in detail. What is it that helped you in that time specifically?
Well, I definitely think the circumstances around that timing was really interesting. If you guys remember, October of 2020 was very tumultuous. That was when I got my layoff call, was the first week of October.
That's one of those $5 words right there.
Tumultuous? Yeah.
That's a college word. We didn't pay for them.
No, we did not.
That's not in our update.
No, not yet.
We don't have that application on our phones yet.
Still in the beta testing over here, bud.
But no, it was a crazy time. And I think at that time, everyone was just kind of open to whatever, especially being in Florida with so many other people that got laid off. Everyone was just kind of scrambling and figuring out what to do. None of us really, a lot of people's lives got completely upended. Some people that were down there, and so my position that I had was at each of the resorts. So there's like 20 or so resorts on Disney property. So I had 20 other people. We had a big group chat of people that were kind of like, what's going on? Like, what do we do? Did you guys get your layoff call yet? I'm still staying on. And a couple of them stayed, but most of us were booted. So that sounds kind of harsh, but yeah, most of us were laid off. So some people kind of, got positions here and there, and they seem to be, doing well. But I think I was already kind of feeling, I know I said I planned to be a lifer at Disney, but I was already I didn't love Florida. Florida is not for me. I'm a cold weather, comfortable seasons girl, not all summer all the time kind of person. So Florida and I didn't really work out well, but I loved Disney, loved my friends there, loved the church that I went to. So, that all was hard to leave, but I think it was the circumstances just made it really like made us really available, maybe really available to just be kind of like whatever happens next. Like there were already kind of stirrings to think about something else. But yeah, I think just being open to the next journey that could come from anywhere. Like I had talked to the friend I was talking to, I had kind of kept in touch with too. So it wasn't out of the blue for her to message me that there was an open position. But I think also too, one of the things that helped that I mentioned earlier that I had posted about losing my job, just to kind of keep people updated, and there was a lot of news. And so a lot of people were kind of keeping updated if there were going to be layoffs for Disney. And I think that is kind of just a testimony that like it's okay to share what you're going through with people, because sometimes people can come out of the woodwork and help you. And it might not necessarily be like, I'm not asking for any help, I'm just kind of keeping people updated, but telling people like the things that you're going through. I could have easily kept that to myself, that I got laid off, and just gone on my own and tried to keep things all under wraps, which I probably would have done, in certain stages of my life. But I think being able to be open and vulnerable and saying, hey, I got laid off, like this is tough, just be praying for me, I think opened that possibility to come back.
So we'll go ahead and kind of start landing the plane on this one. So Zach, I will let you finish with your questions that you may have, and then if you don't have any, then I'll answer a few or ask a few.
All right. So you lightly touched on, you guys meeting through a dating app and stuff like that. So how'd the whole, like, I guess to go old school with it, how'd the courting session of your guys' relationship go?
We didn't date terribly long. I mean, we dated for probably a little, like a date, like before we officially got together. It was probably a little over a month.
I'll say around that.
And then we were both kind of like, yeah, let's do it.
Like we felt like I guess like for me, it felt comfortable because it felt like we knew each other before, but like obviously we didn't know each other before. But like when we first met each other, it felt so comfortable. We're like, man, like how did I not like find out about you before? I felt like, were you sure like we weren't like close friends, or like not close friends, but like we knew friends of friends that you know what I'm saying? But like it just felt really genuine. Like we just knew each other before, but we just spread apart a little bit, and then we came back.
I think one of the big things too is that we would talk on the phone all the time. Even though we both lived in Springfield, we would just be on the phone just to like get to know each other and keep talking. And it was Easter of that year. I had gone to a friend's church. The friend that actually brought me back here. I had gone to her church because I kind of just moved back to the area and felt like I needed something different from the old church I went to. And Michael and I were on the phone the entire day. Like it was literally like you had called me on my way to church, and then I called you on the way home, and we were on the phone until like 10 p.m. Like it was the whole day. Not even like it wasn't even like deep conversations. Like we were talking about like doing Halloween costumes where you were like Cookie from Ned's Declassified, like stuff like that. Like it was so goofy, but like
that
it
is
just
legit.
No, it was like a casual conversation like the whole day, like
just the whole day, and then it just kind of grew from there, and we just knew pretty quickly we were just like, that's it.
Like halfway through, get to the charger, my phone's about to die.
But yeah, I mean, and then we started officially. We got together mid-April, April 15th, and so we just hit 2 years, which is exciting. And then we'll be married in December.
Well, congratulations!
Thanks.
On the proposal, but on the 2 years, and the congratulations on the proposal as well.
Just on all of
just we had to separate the congratulations,
No, for sure.
Because I mean, if you won MVP and you Silver Slugger, you want both of those trophies.
Right.
Like you don't just combine them all into one and say, here you go. So, but it is cool how another couple that we've had on, and we make fun of Leonard for cutting it short because of his barber. So I know this is taking probably question away from Zach, but you guys made mention about Mandy and Leonard and how they were a stable, and so just having them on the podcast and talking about their relationship and how they were at a spot where they weren't ready for each other, then it just seemed like it clicked all together. Things just start moving. So would you say that Mandy and I know you and Leonard are obviously brothers, so is that would you guys say that God gave them to you in the perfect timing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I kind of held like my heart under lock and key for my whole life. And so I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for it to be like the right person that I like actually held a relationship with. So I think like I just felt so sure, and we prayed about it too, and we talked, and I think like it's just crazy, like going back to the whole like me leaving Florida and him not going to Florida. It just felt I try not to bank too hard on coincidences, because that's really easy to get a false sense of security from them, that you think, oh my gosh, did you know Michael's last name is my best friend's last name before she got married? Like, it's not even like it's Smith. Like, McNair is was my best friend, like my very 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 best friend, my maid of honor. And so like I tried not too hard not to bank on
It's like tiny hints, honestly.
but it's little, there's little confirmations kind of here and there of just things about our lives that I felt really sure. I don't know about you. I felt really sure.
No, that's what I was saying. Like, going back to it, but like just like knowing that we just had that connection when we first met. So it's like we what's the saying I'm looking for? Like, it's not like we never left. Is that what I'm? Does that sound familiar? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know
no,
I'm
I
embarrassing
get what
myself
you're
on this
saying.
podcast.
Yeah,
but,
I get what you're saying.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, it just felt like, yeah,
I feel like we'd known each other our whole
yeah,
lives. Is that what
yeah.
you're trying to say?
yeah,
Yeah.
I know I'm embarrassing myself on this
No, it's okay.
podcast, but it's okay.
I'm your translator. That's what
Yeah.
I do.
But yeah, I think that's it that I have.
So what are well, this is what we'll end with. So as the curtains are closing, what are some things that you would let people know about you that they may not know? What's something? I'm not saying this and this and that, but things that people. What are you interested in? What are some hobbies? What are things that, like you said, graphic design was something that you enjoyed doing, which I'm sure I didn't know until now. So. What are some things like that, interests and hobbies and all sorts of stuff that maybe we didn't touch about on the podcast that you'd kind of say, hey, this is kind of Sydney? And
Yeah. Well, we both love movies. So any given day, we're probably watching a movie. Movies are big. Baking is huge. Anything to do with homes. We were just talking on the way here too, but we just can't wait to have a home that I can build a full garden and trellis and pergola and all these things that you probably don't know what they mean. But yeah, just homes and baking, and I love hanging out with the kids. Love movies. Music, yeah, big on music. I've played some form of an instrument for most of my life, so.
So, what's your guys' favorite genre of movies?
Horror.
Horror.
For me.
Really?
I'm big on like historical
Historical
fiction and like historical romance too. So obviously, like Pride and Prejudice is one of the best movies
Okay.
ever made. Don't ask Michael his opinion on it because it's wrong. But yeah, I love like historical movies and like rom-coms. Those are always fun.
Cool.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and stop this podcast. Sydney, thank you very much for
Thank
giving your
you.
testimony and just sort of giving the people an insight of what a day in the life of Sydney is like. And we all know now that it's just understanding things are going to happen. Be ready for them. Don't blame God. Just understand that things are going to happen. So
Yeah.
we appreciate you just being honest and opening up that part of your life to everybody and just kind of giving everybody an insight. So we're going to go ahead and cut this off. We appreciate all of you listening. You will be able to join us part 2. We will have Michael. We will have Michael's story on the part 2. So be prepared. Those of you that need to go to the bathroom or pop you some popcorn, whatever the case is, we're going to go ahead and stop now. So join us for part number 2. Thank you.